Good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for joining us for the YesHoney Collective Storytelling Summit. This is our first time holding this style of event. Back in January, we had our YesHoney Collective conference, and we didn't know that Corona was happening. And so with that, I had set the intention to take YesHoney Collective across the states to connect with people, across the map. And as life does, it was a little bit of a transition with the coronavirus happening. So I wanted to make a way so that we can all connect in a new way, and share stories that kind of help us move through it. A lot of times, when we're looking at the timeline and everything, there's so much fear mongering happening, and life has shown us that there's a lot of times where hard things happen and people come together, people build communities in those challenges. And so I wanted to be a part of that side of things. As just for setting the tone and setting the space, I want to bring Miss Sherena Edinboro on. Sherena is a former registered nurse. She's currently a mental health and wellness strategist. She actually spoke at the YesHoney Collective conference and led us through a meditation there, and brought so much peace to everyone. But I've had the chance to personally meet her, through one of the hardest times for me. And she was just such a light. So I want to invite her on to share her gift with you all. Sherena, you want to take over?
Sure. Thank you so much, Terza. It's always an honor to be able to participate in one of your events. They're so wonderful and enlightening, and you have so much knowledge and wealth to share. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you. So I want to go ahead and get started here today by inviting everyone to just set a tone and set an intention for what you're going to receive today and moving forward. We're going to be sharing our medicine here, the medicine of storytelling. That's how we heal, that's how we connect. So as we keep that in mind, I invite you to just set an intention. And it can be anything simple. It can be love, whatever it is that you need, peace, whatever that you need right now. And as you do that, I invite you, if you're able, to go ahead and just wherever you are, lightly close your eyes or just gaze gently at a space or the floor in front of you. As you do that, relax your body. Relax your shoulders. Allow them to drop away from your ears if they're hunched up. If there's any tension in your jaw, allow it to relax and dissolve, dissipate. I'm going to invite you to find your breath right now. Just noticing it. And as you notice your breath, you're not trying to change anything. You're just noticing. At this time, I invite you to take 3 cleansing breaths with me. We'll go ahead and inhale through our nose. And you can place your right hand on your lower belly. As you inhale, filling your belly with air, holding briefly at the top, and exhaling audibly through your mouth. Letting go of all of the stale air or anything that does not serve you. We'll take 2 more breaths like this, inhaling through our nose, filling our bellies with air, holding at the top, and exhaling audibly. Go ahead and inhale again. And exhale when you're ready. As you recall your intention that you set, with your breath now, I invite you to say a mantra with me if you choose, to yourself or out loud. It doesn't matter. And that mantra is So Hum, which is Sanskrit for I am that. So whatever your intention is, you are that. You're manifesting that. So as you inhale, you're saying so. And as you exhale, hum. And as you do that, I'm going to go ahead and just play a little sound to ground us as we move forward with our session. Remembering your breath. As you start to come back to your breath, just remember that you are all that you desire. And the only thing you have absolute control over is your peace and yourself. When you're ready, join me back, wiggle your toes, and open your eyes. It's such an honor to be here with you again today, and I thank you for joining me in that short grounding. And I'll just share a little bit with you about the bowls. The pink bowl to my right is actually the root. It symbolizes and represents the root chakra, which is our first chakra right here at the base of your pelvis, like by your perineum. And what that does is help with stability and grounding. The bowl, the indigo bowl to my left, symbolizes the sixth chakra, which is the space right between your eyes, which is known as your third eye. And your third eye is your center that you can access for a higher consciousness, for clarity, if you will. So as we sit here today, sharing our stories, connecting with each other, I invite you to just open your mind and your consciousness to a higher level. Because again, storytelling is medicine, and it's how we connect, and how we heal. The bowl in front of me, the green bowl, represents the fourth chakra, which is our heart chakra. And I love working with these bowls because I feel as though they're all very connected and related. So with this bowl, we want to remember love and to keep our hearts open, especially during these times when we can get disconnected and where we can be isolated. So always just remaining hopeful, remaining open, and always working from a space of love. So I'm going to share a brief story with you to start out about acceptance and overcoming challenges, because especially during these times, things don't always go as, I know for me, as I want them to. And I have a very, just situation that happened, as a matter of fact, last December 11th. And I'll share that with you. So on December 11th, I was set to take a trip. I was prepared to go to Guatemala. I had everything prepared. I had my passport. I'm like doing this new thing where I want to do minimal packing. And I was headed out for a trip for about 2 weeks. So I had my bag packed. I had my laptop, my iPad, my passport, a couple $100 in the bag, along with all my workout gear, because I was headed to a retreat in Guatemala to work with spirituality as well as plant medicine. So as I was headed to the airport, bag, placed it in the front of my car, I stopped off at the ATM. So at the ATM, I hopped out my car and went there. I was in and out my car in like 2 minutes, didn't lock the door. So after that, I headed out to the airport. So on my way to the airport, I was like, oh, let me look for my charger. So I reach over for my bag, my backpack, and lo and behold, my backpack was gone. And passport gone, money gone, everything gone, laptop. And as an entrepreneur, how I do my business is through my iPad and my laptop. So, it was just really, really devastating. It was quite a blow. And it just took me by surprise. And it was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like depression quickly, kicked in. It was anger. I was upset. There was fear. Is my identity going to be stolen? And then it was just sadness, So I literally came home and went, straight in my bed, didn't want to talk, didn't want to eat, and just found myself like, over and over in my head, beating myself up about what I should have done, how I should have locked my door, And after going round and round and round for about a day or so, I actually spoke with someone about what happened, and I was able to dig down deep and find acceptance, dig into my tool belt, because I meditate a lot, all of that stuff, and everything kind of went out the window. It's like, why me, But then I was able to rationalize and change the story in my head by telling myself, you know what, it is Christmas time. These things do happen. Things like this happen every day. And maybe it doesn't happen every day to you, but it happens to a lot of people. Your house didn't burn down. You still have your health. All of these things can be replaced. And in yoga, I work with the concept, one of the concepts, which is one of the yamas. And it is, I can't recall right now, but basically it's about acceptance. And if you're, non-excess, aparigraha, like, are you having too much, or can you step back? And like, why are you so attached? So working with non-attachment. And I was able to change the story around in my head, saying these are only material things. They can be replaced, and they have been replaced, not in the timeline that I wanted to. But I share this to say that oftentimes things don't go the way we want them to. But then what do we do? How do we move forward? Are we able to take that step back and look for the light? Or are we going to look for the shadow side of things and stay in that dark place? Because when you go into dark places, what happens is you're inactive. You're not taking action. You're not taking actionable steps to get you where you need to be. And it is difficult. It's a very, very difficult thing to do, but it is doable. So by reaching into my tool belt and, being able to, first of all, communicating, sharing it with another person, sitting, meditating on it, I was able to come to a resolution. And I was able to actually, I went to, I think on the 13th, Friday the 13th, I ended up taking a day trip to San Francisco, replacing my passport because I was hoping to still be able to make the trip. I bought a whole new set of tickets and I missed the last flight because they issued my passport too late. So then again, I suffered another loss. But at that point, I felt okay about it because I knew that I did everything that I could do. And at this point, it wasn't meant to be. There were forces greater than me that were saying, this is just not your time to do this. And that's okay. So I hope that that encourages you whenever you face a situation that's challenging or untoward, or just seems that it's not favorable to you, looking for the brighter side of things. Maybe it's not meant to be, but greater things are going to come. And I missed that trip to Guatemala, but then I was able to take a journey to Peru when it was my time. I was able to revisit other things and hone in some different areas of my life spiritually and clean up some things before I was able to travel. So I want to thank you for listening and allowing me to share.
Thank you for coming on, Sherena. I really appreciate you sharing your story. Like, I think that the question that always comes to mind, at least for how I perceive that for myself, is, like, what are you protecting me from? Like, if I'm in a situation where like something happens like that, like, I'm just like, it must be something really crazy that they're protected, like, I'm being protected from, if I'm not walking into that, walking into the plan that I had. And I would say that's even how I felt about the, me canceling. I'm supposed to be in Atlanta right now, like, connecting with people, had a whole week trip booked, and it's just like, okay, you're like, you wanted me to sit still and do this, and, we wouldn't have this experience, even if I was in Atlanta, like, it would be way less people, we'd have to charge and all of that. So thank you so much for sharing. Like, I really appreciate you for coming on and always been open to sharing your story, like, with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Our next speaker, I had the pleasure of hearing her speak. I had the honor of hearing her speak on the Spiritual Summit with Madison, Jaye over the last few weeks. And so Miss Nayoka Simone is an award-winning interior designer. She's an author. She's a beautiful spirit. She's a powerhouse. So I definitely want to have her come on and talk about her story so that we can all hear that.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you, Tirza, for having me.
Thank you for being willing.
So hello, everyone. So I am Nayoka Simone. I am, as Tirza said, an award-winning interior designer. Just recently featured in Forbes, which was exciting. And I've been doing interior design since 2016. I wrote a book last year. That book was called Leap Before You Look: The Principles to Conquer Fear and Pursue Your Life's Purpose. So basically, as a serial entrepreneur, because I do like to be transparent and letting everyone know that during the day, I am a full-time federal employee, but I have built my business up within that 3.5 years. So I love transitioning homes. Right now, since we are quarantined, I have been a big advocate for advising people and encouraging you all to declutter your spaces, to do some home organization. This is the perfect time to just get rid of those things that not only expired in your home, but expired in your life as well. So my business has been doing very well for COVID-19. It's been not so great, only because typically as an interior designer, it really requires me to be in clients' homes. And so by not being able to do that, not being able to do a lot of shopping, meeting with them and those type of things, it has been really challenging during these times. So what I've been really focusing more on as a designer, I was just recently, prior to COVID-19, which is truly amazing, I was able to do the reveal of my products, which I do sell candles and body oil products, which are infused with essential oils, but they are now available at the MGM, which is very exciting for me. And so I'm just very excited about the transition, the period in which I am in right now, and most of us are in right now. And I definitely just want to encourage everyone just to take a second. And I know I've been hearing a lot about, we don't have to really utilize this time to be busy, to build, our businesses and to do all these other things, which, of course is okay. But it's definitely a great time to reflect. And one thing I do talk about in my book is faith. Faith is really big during this time frame. And I just want to make sure that I'm encouraging you all to stand true to your faith. I know it's hard and all that, all that stuff, but this is really a good time that if you are willing to build a business, to expand your current business, reconnect with those people that you have not been able to reconnect with, reconnecting even with yourself. I know that because I'm always on the go and my schedule's really busy, that I really didn't have a lot of time to sit still. And I'm a big extrovert. So anybody who's an extrovert, I know for me, I am embracing the time because I'm always on the go, but it's, I have my ups and downs, but I know that it's a great time. It's been a great time for me to actually focus on me, spend some more time with my girls because I am a mom of two. So this journey has been, it's been a learning experience. And so I've been decluttering my house like crazy, y'all. I just can't even express that. And our Madison is on here too. She's going to be speaking later. And she even told me that I've been encouraging her to get rid of stuff so much that she can't even find where she's placed some things in her own space. So yeah, Tirza, I don't know. Did you have any additional questions for me? Or does anyone have any questions for me about decluttering, organizing your space, maybe a couple of tips?
So for you, do you kind of follow the KonMari method, or like, do you have like your own method for decluttering? Like, what does that look like? Because for some people that, may not be familiar with her side of things, they may not know, like, about the energy that comes with stuff. I'm very particular about my space and receiving gifts and things like that of that nature, because being aware of the energy that comes with certain things. So like, if you could speak to that, that would be great.
Okay, so one thing that really stuck out to me, what you just said, was energy. I'm not sure if any of you use sage. I do. So what I typically do with the sage is I open up my windows, and especially during this time, I open up my windows, light my sage, and I speak words of affirmation, not only for myself, but for my home and my space, my energy, all of that. So basically I say words like happiness, financial abundance, clarity, love, those type of things to kind of, make sure that my space and my energy is pure. As far as the tips What I typically recommend, I have my own because I've created some resources that I share with my audience. And I just say to tackle one space at a time. So what I did was when the quarantine first started, I started with my kitchen. And I started in my pantry and I pulled everything out. I looked at the expiration date on everything and I threw away those things that no longer served me. And like I was saying earlier, that also too applies with where you are now. So anything that's not for you in this season, and some things that are hitting you hard during the quarantine, this is a perfect time to get rid of those things. So I typically started with my kitchen. Then I moved my way up into my bedroom. So taking those things out of my closet, I'm going to keep it real. Some things I simply can't even fit anymore because I was wondering why I was holding on to knowing sis can't fit into it. So sis had to get rid of those things, okay? And so what I did was I just started a donation bag so that, once it's all over and said and done, that I can definitely donate those to a charity that can use those things more than I can. And they're really nice things. And I know sometimes we don't want to separate ourselves from those things that we feel serves us, but you have to separate and you have to take away those things that, you got to get rid of them. And so I use that concept when I'm decluttering and organizing any space. So you have things in your garage, your attic, your kitchen.
What I found interesting too, like in this, because I've also been in this, I recently moved, so like I was getting rid of even more stuff after I got resituated and everything. But I'm finding that I'm also like reconnecting with things that, I may not have paid attention to before. Like my sister found like my old cell phone from, freshman year of high school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to order the charger for this just to find out like what pictures are on there. So it's kind of cool how the less that you when you start doing this cleansing, you also start finding things that kind of matter, or reconnecting with people, in that process, because other people are going through this cleansing process too.
Exactly.
So I'm getting more phone calls, like as that's happening. It's almost like the more stuff that I get rid of, like that somehow energy wise, it makes me more receptive to the energy of other people too.
So that's, and I know right now the candles that, people are getting those simply because the scent is clearing. It's like when you're inhaling it, it's clearing your mind. It's allowing you to relax. Because this is a great time to self-care too. I mean, we're all, like I said, I'm sure everyone, all 47 people that are on here, at some point, you just never really get to take time out for you. And so that's why it's good to, lay in the bubble baths, or, for me, I added eucalyptus to my shower, which is, there's a lot of benefits to eucalyptus. And if you go to a massage therapist, if you notice, typically, I know the ones that I go to, they will rub it in their hands and allow you to inhale the eucalyptus prior to starting your massage. So, there's some great essentials, tips, candles, oils, sage, things like that you can definitely incorporate to your space to make it more relaxing and being able to deal with the circumstances in which we're all having to live right now.
Awesome. And then for you, just personally, how do you feel what do you feel like you've taken from this experience, with the whole COVID-19 thing?
Stillness, being able to be still in the moment of chaos. I feel like typically when there's chaos, we kind of we're all over the place. We're always trying to find these solutions. We're always ripping and running, trying to fix things and do all this stuff. But right now, because we're in a sense of chaos where we have no sense of control. And so it's like, okay, how do you not control a situation? And to me, that's just being still. Sometimes we need to sit still.
Yeah, I'm like, and I've been tweeting that a lot lately, like, peace, be still, like this, like.
And especially if you're having a lot of chaos, even in your own life, you know, some people are runners. So they're always on the go, or they're trying to do these other things to kind of fill in the gaps of where they're actually hurting, or what situations they need to resolve, or that type of thing. But now we can't run. We have to head these situations head on. And in order for us to do that, we've got to be still.
Yeah. And I feel like not even just with, like, to your point, like, not even just with themselves, even with their families, like, you know, I feel like there's going to be like a lot of people that are addressing things with their families, but then also, like, you know, moving through them. And so for the people that are active in doing that work, I feel like this is going to be like a time of a lot of healing, like, not just, you know, like for themselves, but like for relationships and things like that too. So
absolutely, I agree with that.
yeah.
I agree with that, yes.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Tirza. Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any questions, or hit me up on social media. Thank you, guys.
My next speaker is somebody who's such a light, and, like, you know, I post a lot of sparkle emojis on the timeline and stuff, but every once in a while I find somebody else that's dropping just as many uplifting things. And so Rashad Fox is based out of the Bahamas. He really works on storytelling, and, you know, his first post, like on even just like his pinned post, is about like, I'm gonna let you guys know who I am one day, but first I'm gonna like thank all like these amazing people. And so just the fact that gratitude so bred into everything that he does made him kind of like, you know, made me gravitate towards him and his content and the things that he's working on. And so I'm so excited to bring him on to share his story, because I'm excited to hear it. You know, he works in health and fitness and really inspires people to, you know, be their best selves through sharing his amazing videos and pictures and things like that while he's out there in the Bahamas.
Cool. So like Teresa said, once again, I'm thankful for this opportunity. Teresa may be, like she said, one of the people that has tons of sparkles, but just is a light to everyone she comes in contact with, especially me. And I really appreciate this opportunity. And I always tell people, yes, I work in health and fitness now, but my main goal is to help people embrace their story, figure out their why, and inspire people along the way to kind of live in their purpose. So I'll start off with like a small quote. It's actually written by me. That's just like the Leo inside of me. But it goes, we were wounded deeper to be a cut above everything average, threading our dreams together so we can sew into others. We are the fabric in the fabricated world. And my story is going to be on just appreciation and the willingness to inspire someone else. I wrote that quote, I would say, about last year when Dorian hit. I was actually working in disaster recovery at my 9 to 5 because I work in sales. That's my thing. And the day Dorian hit, I had just come off of my biggest deal of the year, and just based upon listening to what my heart was saying and wanting to help out, I just stepped away and I wanted to kind of live in my purpose. So for me to inspire people, after that, I wanted to do it in a way that I enjoy, and that just so happened to be health and fitness. So it just feels like first nature for me. Since COVID started, especially that transition from Colorado, where I was when Dorian hit, to moving back home, I think my focus was just having some gratitude, because I feel like I was taking places that I would have never imagined to go because of my faith and because of the people I was connected to. And, you know, in health and fitness, I wanted to maintain that light and just highlight other people. So now, moving back home, I've really been focused on giving out a lot of gems to people that not just only want to get in health and fitness, but also staying encouraging and really appreciating the people around. I feel like since that time, I had a lot of experiences to appreciate the people around me, whether it's, you know, you guys on this, whether it's Tirza. I got to see my last grandparent here since I moved back, and also just reconnect with friends and get some clarity. And that's just my focus for you guys is, you know, I know this is a time where everyone's, you know, panicking, and rightfully so. You need to find that peace, and you need to look at the things that you're grateful for so you could slowly shift your mindset into, you know, being able to think outside of yourself and how this is affecting you and possibly serve other people. So that's kind of like my gist of this story. And like Tirza said, I go through health and fitness, whether it's workout plans, videos for people, or just being encouragement and, you know, checking in on them. I feel like that's where I find my joy, and that's what I'm going to extend to everyone else. So you guys have questions or, you know, want to hear more about that, I'm happy to answer anything.
So as you've been like kind of moving through, you know, with this all happening, like what does that look like for the Bahamas? Because I know there's a lot of us that are like, you know, we love to travel and things like that, and Bahamas is like a destination place. So what does paradise look like right now?
You know, it's kind of interesting because it's still calm in the sense that, you know, I go outside and, like you said, I find peace in like small stuff, like, you know, the nature around me, plants, family time. But for people here, we actually have a more strict lockdown in the sense that, you know, right now we're on lockdown since Tuesday, and we're going to go to Tuesday where nothing's open besides essential services, and you really can't go like to the park, for example. I know a lot of people have been like working out in the park. That's why I have a lot of home videos now. So it's just a new sense of paradise. Whereas you don't have the beach because you can't go there and, you know, just meet and connect with people and shed light there. But you have peace of mind in trying to be still, trying to look at what can you do. And that's something that Tirza actually pointed out to me is, you know, start looking at what you can do. And I looked around, and based on how I adapted to that and, you know, my driving to help other people, it allowed me to not just connect with more people, but actually have what I call like my sense of paradise, which is helping more people, and actually had a big milestone in not just my business, but just all around life. I have a lot more clarity and focus right now. But for Bahamians here, it's a more strict lockdown. But I think if we look at it from a different perspective, there's a lot of opportunities in it that we can create. And there's also a lot of ways we can reach out to people around us and inspire them to, you know, do what they have to do to be at peace, to find joy, to kind of focus moving forward.
Yeah, and so like, you know, I think you mentioned something about the park and just like that they're locking that down. So like I live across the street from a park too, and it's really, it's weird because it's like it's an open space, and so you don't have to be around people, but it's just like, is it still social distance? Like if there's no one around, like this is social distancing, right? Like I can still be outside. I think a lot of people, depending on where you are, it's interesting to see the boundaries of like what's considered okay for like you to go outside. Like I go in my backyard just because I'm too nervous to go like outside in the front, like, you know, over by the park or anything like that. We have like a whole like, you know, levee that you have like a walkway to like go down there. And I'm just like, I don't necessarily know if I want to be up there right now because, you know, that's like, I don't know if that's supposed to be okay. Like the rules have been redrawn now. And I think that's so interesting. That's one of the things that we kind of saw with Madison. Jaye hosted a international summit, and we had, you know, people from different places talk about what the rules are in their different countries. And so it's really interesting to hear what it's like from there. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you, or they wanted to download your fitness, like, you know, purchase your fitness program, like where can they find you?
They can find me. Twitter is definitely where I'm at the most.
Mhm.
But I'll also link my Gumroad website below, so they can check that out, get started, follow me, ask me questions related or unrelated to fitness, and, you know, just stay in touch. I'm always happy to have those conversations and just be a light wherever I can.
Awesome. And if you guys are not following Rashad already, like he's such like he's really a light on, like if I you know, there's some days that I'm really having bad days because I'm still healing from a car accident, and like when I come on, it's always good to see somebody that is, you know, trying to share some positivity. And like, you know, sometimes it's hard, you know, being that lone voice, like doing positivity, especially on social media, because like a lot of people sometimes don't want like the positivity. Like, you know, like I always think of Cat Williams, he's like, you guys gang banging on bacon. But you know, I'm so thankful for you that you persist, like, you know, you persist and you keep on showing up. So keep doing your thing. I'm glad that you were able to come on and share with us, and you know, just keep going.
Well, thank you.
A little bit about Mr. Big Bang Oos. He writes the perfect threads, but he's also a virtual CFO for small businesses and an online educator. So he's always sharing content, trying to get people to optimize their systems, to make more money, to like learn how to basically print money through their systems. So I'm super excited to have him. I've watched him work through like creating so much of his own business, but then also like helping push other people's around him through his content. So I want to welcome Mr. Big Bang Oos on next.
Terza, thank you for having me. First of all, I want to say this is a great idea. We're always, for the people who are on Twitter, you might see some of us, we're always on late night Zooms. We're always chatting. We're always getting to know each other. So I thought it was a great idea to just, you know, make this formal and give everybody a chance to share their story and make it like a nice little warm living room feel. And that's the kind of feel that I get from this.
Yeah, no, I definitely I'm excited to connect with everyone. I feel like a lot of people, they only get to see us through the threads and the content. They don't get to like know how we talk or how we move or anything like that. Like I think a lot of people think some of us are more stiff than others. That was like so it's good to put faces to the content.
Yeah. I think especially for me, I'm kind of like semi-anonymous on Twitter, but I thought it'd be great. Like, why not share, you know, my face, my story, my ideas with everyone? I'm not really anonymous per se. I just don't like to be caught up in the wrong energy. Let's put it that way. That can happen on social media sometimes. So yeah, I wanted to start by sharing what my biggest challenge has been as an entrepreneur. My journey as an entrepreneur really started in kind of a similar setting like we are now. I was fed up with my job, and so I just quit. And I know some people who are on this call, or some people that you know right now, might be in that similar situation. So I kind of wanted to share the insights that I had to discover in order to make myself okay with that part of my journey, and to just be able to start building without having that anxiety, without really being afraid. And what's helped me at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey was figuring out, what's the story I'm going to tell myself every day? What am I going to focus on that's going to ultimately create the most peace for me in the long term? And so whatever that question, whatever the answer to that question was for me, is probably going to also help, if you answer that question for yourself, to bring you the most peace long term. So what ended up being the answer for me was, hey, Ousmane, what do you want to do long term, and what's going to help you, achieve that? And the answer I came up with was, hey, if I can go anywhere in the world within a moment's notice and be able to set up a business that's going to make me fulfilled, that's going to keep money in my pocket to be able to do whatever I want, and that's going to make me ultimately happy. So I just focused on that aspect. And so fast forward now, it's been about 5 years since I asked myself that question. The things that I've done in order to answer that question for myself, to make it a reality for me, still apply, because now we're in, the COVID crisis, and I'm not asking myself what I'm going to do. I already kind of know what I'm going to do, because I know what's going to bring me the peace. I know what's going to help me move forward. But that was a challenge, getting to that answer and figuring those things out. So a little bit about me and about my story, about how I became this virtual CFO. I, for the longest time, and I even think now, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to college for accounting. I really only picked accounting because it was the first major on the sheet. There was no aspirational process where I was like, hey, I'm going to do X. I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick accounting. So from there, I kind of just started interning in different positions, and I was never really happy with what I was doing. But I started to kind of catch glimpses of the things that I liked. And that's why I always recommend to people, hey, try to become more in tune with yourself. Try to become more in tune with the things that you like. When you find those, pay attention, write those down, try to do it again, try to replicate that in your life. And one thing for me that stuck out throughout my journey was storytelling. There was a point where I was working at the MTA in New York City, and while I was working at the MTA, because it was my first year and there were a bunch of other first years working at the MTA, they decided to have a first year's competition. So they split us up into groups of 5 to 6. And the challenge was, what can you bring and contribute to this organization that's going to help it propel forward? So you pretty much had open range to talk to anyone in the organization, any of the leaders of the MTA, any of the department heads, any of the customers. You could literally go anywhere and do anything, but you just had to come up with something that would help move the organization forward. And so at the team meeting, we sat down, we chose roles, we kind of just threw the dice, and I ended up being the team leader. And I was like, hey guys, I think the best thing we could do, and this just was a random thing, the best thing we could do is to tell everyone a story that they enjoy. Just like we talked about at the beginning of the call, storytelling is healing. Storytelling is therapeutic. Storytelling helps move people's emotions. And so if we could find that thing for this organization that's going to bring everyone together and help move everyone's emotions in the same direction, then I thought that we would win. And that was really my first time where I started telling stories in a professional setting in order to get some type of result. So long story short, my team ended up winning the competition because what we decided to do was revamp an old mascot for the MTA. It's like this thing with everyone who commutes in and out of Grand Central. They've been commuting for years. You know, they've been working in Midtown Manhattan for years, and then they ended up first, you know, living in the city, then moving out of the city. So all these people were riding the train for a long time. And so just picking something that was nostalgic to them that they could connect with, but also creating a great story that new writers could also connect with, ended up being something that everyone really loved and everyone really appreciated. And again, that story just connected the older employees and the newer employees and helped move everyone's emotions in the same direction. So what I started to get an inkling of at the time was, hey, like stories are very powerful. But I didn't really understand how powerful stories were until much, much later. And especially now in my role as a virtual CFO, you know, I sit down with my clients and I talk to them about numbers, right? Like how fun. uh, you know, I particularly like numbers, but I can't say that about everyone that I talk to. But I do find that when I put a story behind the numbers, when I kind of create a narrative, it helps alleviate some of that anxiety that they have with the numbers, and then more so even the anxiety that they have about their business results. And the more I started seeing that, the more I started telling stories alongside the numbers that I had for my clients, the more I started realizing that, hey, I'm a virtual CFO, but I'm not only a virtual CFO. In a sense, I'm taking people through this narrative that helps heal them, that helps make them better people, that helps keep them focused. And you can start to lead through the stories that you tell. So even in this time right now where we're dealing with the COVID crisis, where you might see all these like large unemployment numbers, going back to, you know, the beginning of what I was telling you guys, the story that you tell yourself is going to be very, very important. You have to find something that's going to create peace for you long term. Don't just look for a story that's going to create peace for you today. Like, hey, I'm not going to watch the news and I'll be okay. No, find something that in the long term is going to make you feel fulfilled. It's a story that's going to keep you focused, and it's a story that you actually like. I can't stress that enough. Too many people wake up in the morning and tell themselves stories that they don't like. And you have to understand the power of that to either build you up or to destroy you. And so, again, I just want to reiterate my main takeaway from my career, from everything that I've done in my time, whether it's been working as an accountant, as a virtual CFO, as an intern, as a student, just be very mindful of the story that you're telling yourself.
As you're saying that, I'm really thinking about how, like, you know, I talk about that with my clients a lot too, just as an accountability coach. And like, when you say I am, and especially people when they don't want to talk about the numbers side of things, like I'm not a numbers person. It's like everyone can be a numbers person. You just have to be willing to look at the numbers. Like, you know, I'm not a designer, I'm not a developer, I'm not, you know, all those I am like affirmations, like those are reinforcing a story like of what you are and what you're not, and blocking those opportunities and things like that. And sometimes I think people get so fearful and like, you know, and ready to reinforce that as a part of their identity that they forget that they can do it.
Right.
And like I'm guilty of it too, but it's like you can do it, you're just not ready to. And that's like, that can be like a more honest version of your story than you know, than saying that you're just not able or you're not built for that and things like that. But going back to what Rashad mentioned about like what can I do, and like operating in that, if you write your story, you can move into that. Like I know I wrote and I think Adrian mentioned doing this before too. Like I think he mentioned it at the YesHoney Collective, writing the press release for like your big, like celebration for like what you want, you know, all your achievements. I did that back in 2017. I wrote like, you know, what I wanted YesHoney to be, because it was just YesHoney back then. Like I wanted to work with designers, developers from across the world. I wanted to open up people's portfolios and like, you know, set up all those different intentions. So I wrote that out and I published it like on Medium, and I was just like, these are the things that like, you know, YesHoney Collective, like YesHoney's going to be doing. But I had to believe that story before I could walk through it. Yeah. Because, you know, you get like reality hits you and you look at, you know, what assets you really have to start, like a lot of times as a new business owner. And sometimes that's like, you know, it's like, it looks like I don't have anything to start with. It looks like, you know, I can't do anything yet. Maybe people don't have enough finances, or they think that they need this whole team and all of that stuff. But I think that, you know, what you said about just reinforcing that story and thinking about like how to change that story to empower your mindset is powerful.
Yeah. And I want to leave everyone with one final story. My freshman year of college, I had this marketing class, and we were supposed to do this virtual coffee shop and run it for 10 weeks. And so your grade was going to be based on two things: your performance and your presentation at the end of the semester. So long story short, our coffee shop was failing every single week. And so at the end, my group members and I were panicking. And I was like, you know what? I got this. Let me present this in front of the class. So I presented week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And at the end of the presentation, the way I closed the presentation was I said, yes, our business was losing money, but every week it was losing less money. And if you gave us another week, we definitely would have been profitable. And when the professor heard that, he just bust out laughing, kind of almost to tears. And he was like, you know what? That's great. I like you. I like your enthusiasm. I like the story you put behind your business. And you're absolutely right. Sometimes businesses go up and then they come down. But eventually, if you keep the positive attitude, your business can do nothing but grow.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and share like so much insight in that. Like, I like, you know how I feel about stories. Like, so, if people needed to find you, like, can you be sure to like share like where they would be able to best find you?
On Twitter and Instagram as Big Bank Ous. And if you have a LinkedIn, send me a DM. I'll add you to my LinkedIn. I have a pretty good professional network. You know, I worked at one of the big 4 accounting firms. So I have a lot of people in my network who might be good for you. I'm going to start posting on there. So make sure to, you know, DM me and I'll connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Ous. So Adrian started and sold several different businesses. He currently manages operations of his consulting firm and is working on his web platform Growthpedia. Like, you're running Xscape, like you're the jack of all trades, master of everything, like if there was one. So I definitely wanted to invite him on to come and share his story, because it may be one that, you know, many people haven't heard yet. You know, they see the powerful tweets and you know, you dropping gems on the timeline, but it's awesome to have you come on and connect a little bit more and share, you know, another side of things. So thank you for coming on.
And thank you for having me. And it's definitely great to be talking with you all again and hearing your stories. And yeah, I mean, I guess I can say that I'm a jack of all trades a little bit. It's mostly business, finance, and technology. And really, finance and technology became one thing. And here I am. Like, when I first got into finance, there was not a whole lot of overlap in that. And when I first got into business, you know, business and technology were almost at odds with each other, as far as between developers and owners and stakeholders and things like that. But what I've learned over time is that it's really all one, that strengthening each of those areas really helps out. And yeah, that's what I wanted to talk with you all about today. So
awesome. Well, we're excited to hear about it. So as you've been moving through things like with this COVID-19 thing, because like I know you've been talking about it a lot, and you know, still trying to manage and maintain your business, like what does that look like for you?
And so for me, it's not very much different, simply because when running a business and just in life in general, I think it helps to kind of be very forward looking. And as a result, you kind of prepare for not any specific events, but any events that may arise. And as a result of that, you kind of look and see what are the risks to, you know, my personal life, my family, my business. And from there, kind of position yourself to minimize those risks and being, you know, drastically affected by those risks. And I mean, you can even do that in your career as well, as far as adding to your skill set, not really always being dependent on just that main job or the skills that you gain from that main job, and then just kind of balancing that out. So then just in case things don't go as planned, you have other skills, not necessarily as a plan B, but you're just really building up that toolbox that makes you better, not only as a person, but as a employee or as a business owner.
Got it. And then as like, you know, for people who are, you know, thinking about getting started, like in businesses and, you know, like are moving through this for the first time and maybe don't have those plans like already created, you know, what do you think that is kind of like the thing that they should be focusing on?
I'd say really what they should be focusing on is risk mitigation, like minimizing your expenses as much as possible, reaching out to your network and seeing what kind of people you have that you can go to if you do need help or finding a job or starting a business, looking for free resources. This is when you really want to learn how to really use Google. Like if you have questions, Google can probably answer. If it can't answer 100% of them, that 1%, you're probably just going to go to somebody that's already an expert in that field or in that field to have that question answered for you. But even when trying to find those individuals to help give you that additional push, Google can help you find those people as well. So,
yeah. And so for like, as you are like, as you're personally moving through things, like what are some of the things that you're doing like in your like, you know, daily routine that you feel like are helping you kind of keep the peace in this? Because like I know you're actually like connected with like, you know, a lot of sources. So how are you keeping sane without the information overload? And that's because like I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear too, how you stay aware but like, you know, not have that actually like overtake you.
Yeah, you never want to let anybody or anything steal your peace, because I mean your peace is what really keeps you anchored. Me personally, I drink tea at least once a day. I like a nice green tea, a lemon ginger. Every now and then I might have a peppermint tea or something like that. And I mean, it's just part of my daily routine. I usually start my day with a glass of green tea and a massive glass of water. In general, I do focus on my mindset a lot, because I understand that a lot of different things can be trying to occupy space inside your head, and that's really what you don't want. And so you have to be able to really filter out and be able to separate yourself from both the environment and the events that may be happening around you, and then, you know, your personal life and your family and your loved ones in that time. Because what you don't want is that any type of stress, positive or negative, any type of anxiety and things like that, to be spilling over into your personal relationships, because then that adds stress to those, and then it makes them unhealthy and unbalanced. And so really being able to say, hey, maybe today I'm not going to be listening to any news, being able to mute different things on social media, leaving phones at home, being able to distance yourself from that constant bombardment of information. And really just, I mean, I read books. Like I'll spend some time like, you know, turn off the Wi-Fi router, turn off the phone. Like most of the time my phone is on silent after a certain hour. I don't take meetings before a certain hour and a certain day, like Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Wednesdays. I usually don't take any meetings at all. So, I mean, I'm very specific about how I structure my life in order to maintain my sanity, because, you know, people and things will really try to hammer at you, but you have to be able to step away from those things and still be able to be aware and be involved and connected at the same time. And so really just being able to distance myself both mentally and physically from things. So, and it also gives you great perspective. It's like a watchtower type approach where you're really just looking at things, but you're not necessarily in them. So,
right. And I think for people who are in spaces where they may be like the only person, you know, in their, like out of their friends and family that hyper curates their life like that, sometimes they need to hear that more people are doing that. So I'm like, you know, I'm really thankful for you sharing it, because I know I'm one of those people who, like, I am very specific about who's let in my space. Like, you know, you have to be very specific about like how people are contacting you, who you're contacting, when you're responding to things, when you're not responding. Because I feel like society as a whole, a lot of us are too accessible, like everywhere. Like there's no breaks. And, you know, for a lot of people who are on here that are business owners, you know, they don't know how to separate the business from, like, especially people that don't have like their work phone and like the like, you know, a work phone number and like a separate one. It's hard for people to balance that, especially if they're new business owners. It's one of the things I see a lot with, like, you know, my clients too. Is there a story, like, you know, like a time that you can share that you kind of like were facing a challenge that you had to kind of move through, that you feel like that mindset like really helps you with?
I mean, everything, like a lot happens in life in general. I mean, losing loved ones has been a big one that I think a lot of people don't really underestimate. And I think being able to process that and deal with both the positive and the negative emotions that come from losing a loved one definitely kind of helps you solidify being able to anchor yourself and stay connected, maintain any type of business operations and personal relationships, career growth, and things like that. And I mean, I don't talk about this often, but just last year I lost my mother to cancer, and being able to move not really past that, but be able to accept the fact that that's my reality now, and then still being able to grow a business and, you know, be there for my family and my loved ones and everything like that at the same time, I think really kind of puts everything in perspective, what's valuable. Being able to own your time, setting boundaries so you can have those high quality relationships with your loved ones. Like, you know, you really have to define what's important to you. And I mean, you can be informed and stay aware, grow a business and everything, and still take care of yourself, because when it's all said and done, your health and your wellness, mentally, physically, spiritually, and otherwise, is key. And without all of that, everything else falls apart. And so being able to always set aside time for yourself to take care of yourself is definitely key. And I mean, without that, definitely, you're not going to have the energy. You're not going to have the stamina. You're not going to be wanting to eat right. You're going to be sitting there eating a bag of chips and a whole tub of ice cream. And then you're going to wonder why you don't feel well. Meanwhile, your blood sugar is bad. You're on the path to, you know, any type of like heart disease or maybe diabetes or something like that, which is, you know, compounding you feeling bad. And so taking care of yourself mentally and physically and spiritually is definitely important. And being able to know, okay, being able to objectively look at yourself in your life and say, are things falling apart? You know, do I need to take a step back? Am I doing too much? Is definitely key to as far as, you know, training those good habits. Because without doing those things, you're not going to be able to run a business. You're not going to be able to, you know, nurture clients and take care of them and customers. You're not going to be able to grow a career because nobody's not going to want to deal with you. And so definitely that's my story. So that's
no, and I feel like that's one that a lot of people can relate to. Like, I know that there's even people on this call that, you know, have lost people like recently, like with the COVID-19 thing, and even before that too. So like, you know, thank you for being, you know, vulnerable and open and sharing about that. Like, you know, y'all know, like, because a lot of people on here, like from Twitter and stuff, like it's been a hard year for a lot of people moving through things. So like, you know, that I can't stress enough how important it is to stay centered. And like, you know, I appreciate you for being willing to share. I'm trying not to get like super emotional right now. Like, like, if people wanted to hear from you, if they wanted to purchase your books, because he's got like some amazing books. I've bought one like on my own too. Where would they be able to find you?
A/K on Twitter. That's A, the word over, and then the letter K, Adrian Kennedy. So that's where they can find me for the most part. As far as social media, that's really where I spend a lot of my time. And from there, that's where I share pretty much everything else about Growthopedia, my business and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Like, there's so much value in just like what you just said in terms about, you know, self-preservation, setting boundaries. Like, you know, I feel like there is a lot of things that people can take away from that. So I'm really thankful that we were able to have you on.
You're definitely welcome. And thanks for having me again.
Our next guest that's going to be coming on to share is the head of multicultural marketing for Cadillac, Miss Kerr. It's such a light. Like, I got to meet her recently at a virtual event that I got to speak at, and I'm excited to like spend even more time with her because she will also be at exotic retreats in Bali with me. But I wanted to, you know, open up the floor for Miss Alexis Kerr to share more about her and her story.
Well, thank you. First of all, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Outstanding. So first of all, thank you for the invite. I appreciate your light and everything that you're doing here and collectively bringing us together. I wouldn't be here obviously without our ace in the hole who's, you know, kind of kept us, connected us. And so I just definitely want to say an appreciation and love for our dear sister who's coming up at the end. Now, I've gone over a couple of times what I wanted to talk about. I'll start with just simply by day. I'm the head of multicultural marketing at Cadillac, so I'm responsible for everything we do in that space, whether it is creative, whether it's commercials, whether it's advertisement for African American, Hispanic, LGBTQ+. As well as our Chinese American when we specifically focus on Asians. But today I just thought it would be a great time to just truly share. We talked quite transparently for everybody. We talked last Friday. That's when obviously everything was kind of hacked and we saw live and direct what could happen if you don't necessarily have a password on these platforms. And so in part of that, it just allowed me to relax and truthfully share kind of who I am, but a little bit more about, you know, I think by day people always feel like, you know, that I'm this professional, and I absolutely am. It's important to me. I love the work that I do, but there's also a part of me that through this COVID period, I've come to realize that I really need to be a lot more transparent. And it's through that transparency that people will be able to grow. And so if I just recall, like 2 weeks ago, I saw the Budgetista. Many of you know her. She's well known. She helps people in general, as well as people of color, fix their budgets, get themselves organized, plan for the future. She's paid cash for all of her homes and her houses. You know, her and her husband's, her parents' home, paid for all of her college education. And I'm bringing this up because she had a very transparent, late night, real girl to anybody who was on. And she just shared like the hardships of her story of how she got here. Now today she has 7 multi-million-dollar businesses. I think 5 of them are multi-million-dollar, but 7 businesses. And so it just made me think between that and last week and just some conversations I've been having that I need to be a bit more transparent about like my humble beginnings, who I am, how did I get here? I just didn't appear in, great pictures with celebrities working for a fantastic brand. I remember, 20 years ago in college with $5 in my pocket and Cadillac Eldorado. That $5, I think, was less than 2 gallons of gas, living in a dorm. My brothers were illegally living in the dorm with me because they decided they were going to leave Augusta, Georgia, move to Atlanta, and that's where we were all going to make this big new start. So I was in Marietta, I was in a dorm, I was trying to finish school. I was definitely distracted and struggling. But I knew that feeling I had inside with just that $5 and a car that, was paid cash for. I just knew I never wanted to feel like that again. And I think it's that fuel that has always fired me to finish school. I finished in 5 years instead of 4 because I always worked. And so I worked part-time and then I finished school. My undergraduate degree was in engineering. And then I said, after graduation, I moved to South Carolina. So I had the opportunity to work for a company. After 3 months of working there, I was sexually harassed. And so as you can imagine, there's all of this fabulousness today, but back then, no fabulous. We're talking about flat shoes. We're talking about coming to work and people saying, come on in here, patting on chairs, come sit next to me, So all types of sexual innuendos, all types of inappropriate things. Thankfully, no one touched me. My mom had a really good friend who did work for the EEOC, and we were able to write a strongly worded letter, get me out of after a year working at that company. And I said, I never wanted to live in a small town. I never wanted to be super duper far away from my family. I was about an hour and a half in Greenville, South Carolina, away from my family in Atlanta. And I just never wanted to feel that way. And so from that place, I said, I wanted to be at a bigger place. I started working at Delphi Automotive, which was in Troy, Michigan. I live in Detroit now. I spent some time there and work was good. But then what happened when I got to Delphi is 9/11 happened. And I'm saying this story just to let you know that it's so important to persevere. And so I'm not where I'm at today because of 9/11 happened. I was a year in a job and I gave up. I said, okay, I've got to reposition. I've got an engineering degree. What am I going to do? I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to school. I was interested in technology. I was interested in the sciences, of course. So I got an engineering technology degree from Kent State, which is where I was in Ohio. Fast forward 2005, the company went bankrupt. So as you can imagine, some of the stiffness and some of the anxiety that people are having today, as I keep talking through kind of who I am, you'll see why I've got this peace. And many other people have this peace. And this is the peace of, our grandmothers and mothers who bore or bared a lot or went through a lot, and then they still had joy within, and they knew how to deal with. You'd be like, the house is burning, and grandma would be like, let us pray. It's gonna be okay, baby. And it's those type of things now that I have that stillness and peace inside. And mind you, I'm in Detroit. We're one of the top 5 cities when we think about the COVID crisis. I went to a seasoned church, so many of my church elders are passing. People that are younger, in their 60s. We know people in their 40s and 50s. And so to the young people, that may not be old, but to me, it just doesn't feel right. And so, instead of going back to Georgia and hanging out with my family, I said, no, I want to be here to help this community in Detroit. I don't want to leave. There's some stillness and some peace inside of me that said, stay, see what else you can do to help. And so, I could give you many tragic stories of things that have happened, but I've embraced the joy of what I have power to do and help, instead of going back and being with my family. And thankfully, I'm safe at home alone. And so that's helped with some of those things, and just being able to deliver, Easter eggs to to a woman who lost her husband so her kids could just have Easter and find the eggs and find joy throughout the house. And so I would say that we all have to accept that power and know that and own it. You know, as people of color, we've owned a lot. So we've got to own the power that we have in this moment to not feel like we're, you know, we have no control. Because when you feel like everything's out of control, you have no control, then you act in that way. And that's not the way we need to act. We need to rally the troops. We need to talk to one another. We need to support one another. And we've got to tell our story. And our story, at some days, is a messy story. You know, as I think about continuing forward, worked at Delphi, went through bankruptcy. We were in bankruptcy for 4 years, transferred over to an opportunity at GM, came, and that was, you know, great. But then what happened? We moved into the crisis, the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. And at that time, the economy was, you know, in shambles. I was so thankful that I had looked for a home, but had not bought a home. Fast forward to 2013 and 14, had the opportunity. It took me forever to find my first home, but found it. It was a house bigger than I wanted in a neighborhood I wasn't so sure. So what did I do with my agent? I underbid them. And they actually said yes. Shockingly, they took the bid for my house. They said yes. And then I had the opportunity to continue to work. But I was asked in 2016 if I was interested in taking an opportunity abroad. So I worked for General Motors, took an opportunity abroad, worked as a customer experience and retail manager in Dubai. Did not know one person, had traveled many places in the world. At that time, before 2016 in May, I had been to about 20 countries. I love to travel. After that time, I had the opportunity to, instead of going 6 months, they asked me to stay. I traveled to all the countries, many of the countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia a few times, you know, Bali, a number of other countries. Now I've been to about over 60 in my lifetime, and super excited. There's many more that I'd love to go to, but taking that risk and challenge and going and all throughout, you know, God protected me. You know, thankfully I was able to travel back and home on a quarterly basis. So that went well. Came back to the US. The home that I lived in, the value had gone up because my brother decided right before I went to Dubai that he wanted to move in. He said, you know, your bathrooms look like we're at Granny's house. And I'm like, really? You gonna tell me my bathrooms look like Nana's house? And he said, yeah. And I said, so fix them. And so that's what he did. He fixed the half bath first, and then he went in, he fixed the you know, it was a risk for me as well as a risk for him, but he ended up starting a business here in Michigan. He updated many of my friends' homes. And when I came back from my, you know, serving or working in the Middle East, when I came back to the US, my house sold for a third more than I purchased it for. So in full transparency, I bought the house at 200 and let's say 25, and the house sold at 325. And so at that time, I was like, right before I left, I said, listen, I want to, you know, take out a loan. I was thinking that I wanted to get my MBA. I was looking at a number of schools, U of M, their executive MBA program, that was about $200,000. I didn't have the money at the time. And after thinking it through, I had the opportunity to go abroad. And when I came back, one of my mentors said, listen, when you went to Dubai, there was two things that you could do. You could travel the world, or you could start your MBA. And so you could start it in a remote program or a hybrid program. And I said, you know what, while I'm there, while I'm halfway across the world, I'm going to travel. And so that's what I did. I had a great time, wonderful experiences. 40 friends and family came and joined me while I was there, so loved it. And then as I came back, I was able to sell my home and do well on it. I put the money in my savings account. I moved to New York with the Cadillac team. I started the operations team for that we had for a subset company booked by Cadillac. After about 1.5 years, we ended up moving back to Michigan. And so here I am in lovely Eastern Michigan, in a suburb of Detroit. But today, you know, I'm here because I kept going. So whether it was the financial crisis, whether it was 9/11, and even the crisis in the pandemic we're in today, I just want to encourage people to stay the course. Your journey is your journey. We've all got to own it. But if you stay the course, you can continue to progress. And so for me, it's been 20 years now of being a professional. When I came back, I had a plan. So when I came back to Southeastern Michigan, I accepted this job as head of Multicultural, but I also started a business. And so I have homes, 2 homes, one here in Michigan and one is in Georgia, and I rent them out. And so in coming back, it was really important for me to be strategic. And so at this time of, pandemonium, obviously of panic, I have a bit of peace. It's not perfect in any way, but my focus is really on how can I help and encourage others versus woe is me, this is happening. And mind you, any day, anything can happen to us all. But having gone through a couple of these crises, none of them have been this tragic and this global. And it's nothing to see. One of my very close friends and mentors, she passed last Sunday, Miss Brenda Perryman. So there's been, nothing more heart-wrenching that I've gone through than this, just to see so many people in the church community, just online, friends of friends hurting. And when we think about communities of color, we know that we are hit because we tend to be disenfranchised. We're more exposed at a time like this during the pandemic. And so, I just wanted to get on, be as transparent as possible, but also, give a sense of optimism and love and hope. The thing that we can control, one of the people earlier mentioned, is that we definitely can control our mind. And, I've decided to have a spirit of optimism, hope, and sharing and empathy during this time period. And I just feel like I'm in a place, and God's put me here so that I can help nurture and nourish relationships. I want to be the one that, speaks reason to people who feel like there's nothing that they can do. I woke up this morning about 4 and read an article about a mother who's, in the city that I worked at one time. She lost her husband, and within 3 days, she lost her son who had asthma. And so there are things that we can do, even in this period, as we mourn and go through. It's about us, reaching back, reaching over to help others, figuring out how can we support people who are starting to do something. A friend of mine, they started a business making masks, so how can I support them? There are children that we know that may not have the resources at home. How can we take steps? Do I have an extra tablet or phone here that I can give? And so, as long as my mindset is that I can help, I can share, I can nurture, Lord, use me, then he's absolutely going to use me. And so, Madison, she's been a great light, a great supporter, just in bringing us all together in the weeks prior, but also in just encouraging us to, stay in tune with listening to God, to listening to ourselves, to going within, as we think about tomorrow's Easter Sunday, and in the past that everyone would gather and I'd be driving to Georgia, I'm like, there's something that I can do on Monday to help people here in Detroit. And yes, my family absolutely knows that I love them. We FaceTime, we chat, we have jokes, we share a lot. But again, there's work here that is important that I do. I still don't know from God, like, why is there this stillness and peace in me? But I know that I'm listening to it. And today was not really what the things that I, thought I would share, but it's just more important for me to, be vulnerable and be transparent. We know that all that glitters is not gold. And I am a person who lives below her means and tries to save as much. Like, those are the things that we can control. When we think about women of color, we're the most educated and the least paid. And so for me, it's not about complaining about that. For me, it's about how am I taking action, and how can I still help, and empower young girls, people in our community to live a bit below their means, cultivate their monies, save and build real businesses. I'm not talking about, anything that's a business built or has a foundation on the backs of other people, especially our people, I just think we shouldn't do that. So I'm here to cultivate relationships. I'm here to share. I'm here to give. And that's, you know, those are the things that excite me. Those are the things that I've been blessed to be able to do. And I just think I'm just beginning. You know, I always say that I'm just beginning. So I humbly thank you for this opportunity to share in a very different way. All of my notes went out of the window.
No, I love it.
This was, you know, just valuable to people. You know, in the end, I realized I got so much from the budgetista saying, hey, sis, I didn't start out like this, but look where I ended up. And so I too, none of us started out like this. You know, I can remember not just in 2008. Yes, we were in the middle of the financial crisis, but too, when I was pulling out of the building, my car got T-boned. And so I was in an accident during that 08, those elections and the Hillary and the Obama. I was sitting in the bed going absolutely nuts, but I'm thankful that God brought me through that. I just had a minor concussion. And the initial drugs that they gave me made me a little bit loopy, but it was just through my family and friends and that support network that I've always had and always felt, that's just allowed me to, you know, continue to progress. And it's never, none of it's ever perfect. None of it is easy, but, you know, in the end, you're thankful and you see why, you know, God had me do this little interview or that big interview, or had me reach out to this person, or this person just showed me mad love and didn't ask for anything in return. So, you know, I'm in a very grateful and thankful place as I sit before you today. I walk 3 to 4 miles a day just to keep my sanity and energy. There's a great gym, Effect Fitness, that has free online. You know, it's a heck of a workout, but you just do whatever you can. And so, you know, I just want to, you know, leave with some final words of just saying, stay encouraged, take care of your mental and physical health. And then I'd also say that we just got to be better prepared. It's like, why do we continue to build empires as people of color then we don't have trust or will? So it takes very little to put together a will. And so that's so important. You know, why, even at this, you know, whatever age that you're at, you know, many entrepreneurs on here, for everything that you work so hard to build, even if we don't think that we're going to pass or something tragic is going to happen. I mean, think about it. Do any of the, you know, 800 or 900 people that went to the hospital yesterday in New York and passed, or the 600 people that passed here in Detroit, do we know that any of them thought this is how my, you know, day was going to end with their families? And so I say that it's so important for, you know, all of the disadvantage that we've overcome to let it all just sit in the court system and the kids don't have it, or your wife or spouse or partner, you know, doesn't have access to all of that you work so hard for. I think that's one piece that's really, really important. So I'm going to pause for a second. You could have some questions.
You know, you hit on so many different points, but just, you know, I love that you started with Tiffany Budgetista, because she is very, very powerful, because she will cry on her lives. She will like show up no matter like what she's going through. And I'm like, I aim to be that strong, but that's why I write. Like I write because I know that, you know, like being seen as emotional makes people think that you can't be logical. And so like with meeting you, when you were on, you know, the live and you were freeing yourself, it reminded me of like, you know, that moment when I like, you know, I got in my car accident and all of a sudden my personalities were collapsing. And I did a whole talk about, you know, what it's like to code switch, you know, or like be all these compartmentalized parts of yourself and things like that. But it's like, once I don't have the day job anymore, once I'm not the college professor anymore, once I am not big sister because I'm not at the house, or I'm not daughter, like who am I when I'm sitting still? And I feel like a lot of people are coming into that. And even like watching you, like, you know, move through that and just be open to being like your natural self, like outside of, you know, my work role or what people expect me to be. is powerful. And so that's like, I'm like, I love it.
I appreciate it. And I think, it's probably one thing that I've always been as a person who's blocked out being vulnerable. But as I've just grown and this period has definitely helped. Prior to this COVID, I was on planes 3 to 4 times a week, every single week. And so, all of January, all of February, whether I was sick or not. So I'm just at a period of just peace and thankfulness where I'm just like, God, you really brought me through all of that. So let me not run and go do something else. Let me just enjoy this stillness and peace and hear from you. And still, I don't know all of the things that he has for me or wants me to do, but I'm definitely very open to learning, sharing, and listening. Yeah.
And the one other thing that you mentioned was just about like trusting that it would make sense eventually. Like, I feel like that's a huge thing that people don't get. Like, even we wouldn't be having this summit. I was having like a down day, and like I messaged like Madison and stuff, and I was just like, sis, like I'm not feeling it today. And she was just like, okay, no, sis, like we're gonna like let's talk through it. And we had like a 4-hour call, and then we ended up on the spiritual summit. And we did that for 3 rounds. And then I'm like, okay, like I knew that I needed to be doing something to connect with people. I just didn't know how to like, properly show up in a way that was authentic to me, because I'm not an Instagram Live person. Like I'm just not. So, thank you for being open. Thank you for sharing. Like, I know that there's going to be some people that probably want to sing your praises after this. So can you like drop like where they should connect with you and how they should keep up with you?
Great, thank you. So again, thank you for having me, Madison. I'll always appreciate you, and thank you as well for hosting this today. I think it's so important, and I feel really good now. Now that I got it all off my chest. 2 ways. Instagram, I am Alexis Kerr, and also on Twitter, I am Alexis Kerr, and then just Alexis Kerr on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn probably have the most followers, but I don't usually put a lot of content out there that really is relatively close to me. But I think on Instagram, you definitely going to see plenty of stories and who I am. So I am Alexis Kerr on Instagram, Kerr.
So my next guest is an author. He's now a public speaker. He's he is a financial manager. Like, he has his own startup fund, his fitness brand. We're gonna welcome Madu. So I want you to come on, and I really wanted you to come on because I want people to hear more about you and your background, and just kind of like, your story, because you have the fitness brand, you have Black Seed Summit coming up, you have all these different things, and I feel like it would be great to have them connect with you and what you're working on.
Yeah, so I guess as far as background goes, was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I'm a first generation Nigerian American. So my parents came to the US back in the 80s, like 81, I want to say. And from there, I pretty much have always lived in Texas. Got my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And then went to work in West Texas for a little bit. So I was in the middle of nowhere. And that whole experience was interesting because, it was, I guess, my first time moving to a place where I knew absolutely nobody. And, I was by myself I was probably there about 1.5 years, but it was a very, very good experience. But the one thing I think that it taught me was that I probably won't live in a small town again unless, it's somewhere where I have a family, or it's almost like a secluded place for whenever stuff goes south in America. But it pretty much taught me that I needed to be I'm pretty much a city guy. So I was working on the West Texas for a bit, doing project management for a building materials company called USG, United States Gypsum. And after that, I got my MBA from Pepperdine, did most of it online, and also moved back into the Houston area, was working at Marathon Petroleum at the refinery down here in Texas City. And then after that, I moved back into the city, got a job with Enterprise Products as a senior commercial analyst. That was more so a role that I switched into after I got my MBA. But yeah, as of November of last year, I am now just fully working on all of the ventures that I do have. So kind of falling back in 2014, I was living in, I bought my first piece of real estate. And from there, you know, things kind of took off because, you know, back then I pretty much bought that house off of Craigslist. And I didn't really have anyone that I can kind of bounce ideas off of or kind of ask questions and things like that, simply because, you know, my parents, you know, they would have just been parents, especially my mom, to where it would have been like, why are you buying a house? You don't need to do that right now, this, and that. And I really didn't want that negativity to cloud any of my judgment. So for me, it was just more so I'm going to do it. And then after it's done, I'll let them know and pretty much show them that, you know, whatever I plan to do or want to do, it will be possible. So, you know, bought my first house off of Craigslist, didn't really know what I was doing, but you know, I want to say 3 months later, I ended up moving back to Texas. And luckily for me, the house that I bought, just because it was so cheap, I was able to rent it out for more than, you know, what my note was. And so never been back since then. Since, was it 2014? I haven't been back since then, but I've been collecting a check from that piece of property. So anyone that, you know, maybe on this call that is like interested in real estate but think they're tied down because of real estate, that don't let, oh, you have to live there forever be a reason why you shouldn't invest. Just got to make sure that, you know, the numbers do work out for you. You can still be technically free, you know, if you utilize some of the resources that can allow you to get into a home for cheap, pretty much. You know, you don't need a 20% down payment or anything of that nature to get into a home. There's a lot of government programs like a FHA loan or a VA loan or, you know, Freddie Mac loan that allows you to get in for as low as 3.5% or normally just 5% conventionally. So, but in general, me, myself, I guess as an entrepreneur, I've always been big on ownership. So in the meantime, I've always been building things. I want to say back in 2017 was a crazy year. 2017 and 2018 was a crazy year. So I wrote my first book is a personal finance book called 10 Reasons Why You're Living Senseless. And pretty much just detailing the 10 different areas that we as people spend our money in. And, you know, I just kind of give actionable tips of how to do better. And, you know, this particular book is more so for, you know, if you're not, you know, you don't have to be rich. Like if you're like in debt or getting close to that point, just making sure that, you know, telling you things where, you know, that is kind of relatable now to where, all right, you might not be able to afford to live on your own just yet, but if you're able to live with your parents, do so for a little bit while you stack up, or live with roommates so that your expenses are extremely small. I kind of give some other tips, as far as like things that I've learned. So most of the stuff in the book, I've kind of learned it myself. So like the money jar method, where if you work at a job that allows you to have W-2, kind of have it where you have like 5 or 6 bank accounts, and you just deposit a certain percentage into each account, and each account is for a certain thing. So one might be for bills, another might be for enjoyment, another will be for long-term investing, some for savings, education, whatever the case is. You can choose whatever you want your accounts to be, but if you split it up, that allows you to kind of have different areas or different buckets that your money can go to, so that when certain things arise, you have a specific place that you can get the stuff from, instead of trying to budget and failing. Because I believe that, psychologically, budgeting is pretty much telling your brain that you need to limit yourself, and your brain isn't meant to limit yourself. So by doing so, if you could trick your brain in the sense to say, okay, these are going into different buckets, I think you'll be a little bit more successful versus just limiting yourself by budgeting. So yeah, that's it with the book. So I've pretty much been it's crazy because as I've been getting a little bit bigger audience on Twitter, that's really where a lot of purchases started coming on within the last couple of years. So I have obviously the ebook, and then I have the paperback. And as of earlier this year, I just created the audiobook version for it as well. So, I'm always trying to figure out ways to, capitalize on monetizing whatever is in this big dome right here. So, yeah, it's been pretty cool to go through that experience. And then on top of that, kind of leading into my fitness brand. Like I said, ownership is really, really big for me. So instead of me always rocking stuff like Nike, Adidas, and things like that, I just wanted something that, represents me. And, if I see someone else wearing it, it's like, okay, this, other people kind of rock with what I'm doing. And so that's kind of how Phoenix Athletica was born. And, one of the biggest things for me whenever I started the brand was making sure that the articles of clothing that I having manufactured is really quality clothing. And so the price reflects that. And it just wanted it for something that I would be proud of wearing as well. So the tagline with that particular company is Rise Again. And pretty much that's letting, the members or the people in the community know that, no matter how bad your day is or, whatever struggles you're going to, just kind of like a phoenix, you're able to kind of be reborn or regenerate and, start anew. So, you always have the chance to rise again, even if you're having a bad day. Like one of the things that I do, in general, I don't feel, but if I'm having a bad day, I allow myself to feel. And then, by the next day, I'm good again in a sense. And, that's me in a sense, allowing sleep to regenerate me and become anew and start afresh. So that's kind of where the whole thing with Phoenix comes from. We offer athleisure wear for men and women. So, we have like zip-up sports bras, joggers, hoodies, leggings, and things of that nature. And I had a pretty cool commercial built out for that. So I'm sure some of you may have seen it, but it's pretty cool. I think it rivals companies like Nike. And then what else? Black Seed. So Black Seed was interesting because whenever I started, I kind of wanted, I was maybe 26, 27, and I just realized a lot of my peers weren't investing in anything. And, one of the things that I kind of noticed was, okay, they weren't investing in the stock market. They weren't doing this, they weren't doing that. And, I've been investing in the stock market since, 2010. And so for me, I was like, well, let me try to eliminate an excuse for people not investing, at least for the stock market. So I was giving, free consultations to, some of my friends. And, wow, it was kind of, there's definitely good reviews and, understanding that was happening. What I found out is after our meeting, they might have not capitalized on some of the stuff that we may have talked about. And so the next idea that came about was, okay, what's the next best way to allow people to still be able to invest? And so that's where I ended up starting an investment club. So I have, members that pull our money together, and it almost in a sense forces people to invest. So now instead of them being overwhelmed and trying to figure out how to open an account and this, that, and the third, they're investing with someone that already knows how to invest. So that eliminated any excuse of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. because you're partnering up with, you know, myself and other people who have experience doing what you're trying to do. So yeah, started the investment club in 2017. I want to say our first year, we had almost a 13% return. And then as of last year, it got as high as 55%. Due to Corona, I think we're down to 28 or so. So, you know, that's just a testament to us as a group choosing quality companies to purchase shares of stock in. And for us, you know, we got really close to hitting six figures as far as like the valuation of everything. You know, that's one of the things I kind of right now run for free. Like I don't really take any percentage of that, but it's allowed people who have never invested before start investing. And, you know, a lot of people, what has happened, what's kind of made me proud is, you know, they started investing with us and then they started creating their own portfolio, you know, whether that was through, you know, Robinhood or TD Ameritrade or whatever it was, because they started with us, that allowed them to give them the confidence to invest on their own platforms. And, you know, for me, I'm very happy to hear that because, like I said, investing is very big and investing is for your family. And, you know, you're changing a trajectory for people's families when, you know, you're starting to invest. So very happy with how that has operated. And so as we began to grow last year, I decided to pull money and do it on the real estate side. So we purchased a piece of property in Tennessee, and that was cash flowing from day one. And you know, me doing that, I kind of wanted to get to a point where I'm doing it for bigger properties, so apartment complexes, you know, and even just single family homes. And that's kind of where, you know, the fund that I've just started now, which is the Black Seed Revitalization Fund, it would allow me to, you know, use the money that investors are contributing with us to invest in the hoods of, you know, Tennessee and Texas, so Memphis and Houston. And so we'll be able to buy a lot of these homes that are, you know, distressed for cheap, fix them up, and then, you know, rent it back out to the people of the community so that we aren't just pushing them out after everything is kind of, in a sense, gentrified. So that's one of the bigger projects that I'm currently working on now, just kind of raising the funds. Right now, I think it's a $20,000 minimum to invest. But like I said, one of the biggest things is making that social impact. So you're not only making money off of, you know, just you investing, but you're also, you know, revitalizing a community. But kind of talking about, I guess, pain points of the transition between working the 9 to 5 and going into entrepreneurship full time. It was interesting because every single job that I've had, even though they were good jobs, you know, you get paid six figures, all that good stuff. I never enjoyed it. Like after year one, I'm usually like, okay, what's next? And I guess whenever I kind of thought about it, you know, I just never felt in some places appreciated. You know, when I was working at a refinery, for example, I was climbing up. I went to go look over one of my projects, and I had to climb the scaffold, which is kind of like a ladder. And behind one of the rungs was a 600-degree steam trap behind it. So I grabbed it because it was kind of like hidden, and suffered like third-degree burns due to that. And instead of trying to take care of me in a sense, it got to a point where they were trying to find ways to blame me just in case I sue them. And like someone like me, I'm still young. That's not the first thought I'm thinking of having. So for you to, you know, instead of like trying to figure out ways to, you know, fix the problem first and all this stuff, you approaching me about, oh, well, did you read the safety tags at the bottom of the ladder and this and that? Meanwhile, I'm sitting here watching the people work and put it up. So, you know, just kind of like small stuff like that of not really feeling appreciated and trying to put the blame on someone else it just didn't feel right with me. So with that, you know, I was just kind of looking for a way to transition into something that, you know, I like every single job I've had, like I said, while I might have been good at it, it just wasn't something that I felt like there's always some thing burning inside of me that says this ain't it. Like this isn't what you're supposed to do. You need to be working for yourself. And so I've kind of had a pact since maybe 26 that by 30 I would need to get out of the corporate world. So do whatever I have to do to get out and, you know, fail until I don't, because I know that while I might have been comfortable doing what I was doing at the 9 to 5, I could do so much more and make so much more money if I just struggle temporarily now and figure it out in a sense and be able to capitalize on all the knowledge I'm able to learn and then just kind of exude out into onto others. So now I'm pretty much 6 months into this full-time entrepreneurship, and yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of people, they kind of preach, oh, don't leave your job early, this and that. And while I kind of understand their point, I just think I'm just different. And that didn't apply to me because once I was done, you know, the whole stress of going to work, this and that, like, it was just gone. You know,
it's funny how that works too, because
so, you know, I've always been frugal. My dad kind of like instilled that in me. So I've had about like a year worth of expenses just ready, you know, until I'm able to kind of consistently make my income through other means. So, you know, been pushing through it right now. But as far as like me wanting to go back and get a job, I don't have that inkling to do so.
So there are a few things that you mentioned that I just want to like highlight and like double back on, because I know that there's a lot of people that have the whole challenge with family, because I know even like it was something that I you know, I went and got the business degree and like all that stuff. And even with doing everything that you're supposed to do, sometimes parents still get scared of you, like, you know, stepping out on your own and doing something that, you know, maybe either they haven't done before or, you know, like either they haven't done before or they just don't feel like you should do it because they can't see the vision of it. So for you, you mentioned that you like, you know, you just went and did it and like, I'll tell you, like, I'll tell you later. And I feel like I probably did that eventually. It took me a while to get to a place of that, but I feel like there's a lot of people who also battle not feeling like they're disrespecting their parents, like by like not falling in line with that, like with what they're telling them, or like, you know, they don't have that support. And what happens if everything, like, you know, if their family doesn't back them and stuff. And so like for you, did that decision like happen early on, or did it take you a few iterations of being like, okay, like, no, this for this specific thing, like I'm like, you know, this is my cutoff, like, because some people have like an age where they're just like, okay, after you know, I'm 25, I'm no longer gonna even consult with them. Some people have, you know, everyone has their different like things or ways that they dealt with that situation, but I'd love to hear or have you share about that.
Yeah, no, it's always been that way. Like I've always had this thing where, you know, once I graduated high school, I was pretty much like I wasn't gonna come back home or live at home or anything of that nature. So it was always about making certain decisions to where, you know, okay, once I graduate, you know, I'm gonna be able to have a job that makes me enough money to where I don't have to rely on my parents to help out with rent or help out with bills, or, you know, whatever the case is. I'm dependent on myself and not dependent on them, because, you know, even if you don't have a great relationship with your parents, you know, if they're still in a sense funding some of your lifestyle, they can say whatever they want. They can choose how you operate with some things. And so for me, I had set it up to where whatever they say is more so an opinion, or just me kind of saying, okay, this is what I'm doing, be supportive. You know, because like just growing up, you know, I can't blame them. Like they moved to America from Nigeria, completely different circumstances, and they've thrived. They've been able to raise 4 kids that have all got, you know, graduated from college. Some of us have gotten our, you know, higher education as far as like graduate degree. My sister's about to be a doctor. Like, they've done great, but I just like kind of growing up, I know what I wouldn't want to do with my own kids. And so while I don't blame them, it's just tough because, you know, we just grew up in a strict household. And so that's why I kind of like, I say that, you know, once high school got around and, you know, I kind of left the house, there was no way I'm coming back because I don't want to go back into that. Like, I've been patient enough to get to the point where, you know, I can be free. So why would I go back and be, in a sense, caged? Yeah, it's always been like that with my parents. I just kind of know, like, I mean, parents are parents in a sense. They don't want you to be hurt, you know,
Right.
have all this negativity against you. And so because they might have experienced something of the sort themselves, they just don't want that to come to you. But, you know, you just got to trust your parenting skills and understand, like, the life is life. Like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And you have to let people be who they are.
Right. And I think even going back to, like, you know, what Adrian mentioned about, like, you know, stepping into, like, creating your own, like, boundaries and things like that, like, you know, what you're speaking on, and you know, there's been a few people that have tagged on some things, but, like, just giving permission in your own life, like giving yourself permission in your own life is, like, kind of a theme that I'm seeing today, to, like, you know, structure things the way that you feel like is right for you is huge. Like, a lot of us don't give ourselves permission to have, like, a time for ourselves in the day. A lot of us don't give ourselves permission for, like, our finances, to, like, really architect our lives and things like that. So I feel like what you're sharing, like, really speaks to that whole concept. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm always excited to, like, hear you share in a different way. Can you share, like, what's the best way for people to contact you, hear from you, keep up with you?
Yeah, on Instagram, you can find me at Money Madu. On Twitter, Cash Money Madu. And as far as, like, Black Seed, or most of my information is kind of like on my bios, so you can see, like, everything I'm doing. But I'll also join my email list, just to kind of, whenever I shoot out some content, I'll try to let my email subscribers know first. So
Madu is actually hosting the Black Seed Summit in August. So, like, you can grab your tickets for that. Like, you know, it's going to be, like, the only event that I'm probably doing, like, in the US this year. And then after that, like, I'm not doing anything else until, like, YesHoney Collective 2021. So definitely get your tickets for that. He's got an awesome lineup. Like, you want to drop some names, some people? I think some of the speakers are actually in here.
Yeah, we have pretty much, it's a real estate / stock conference, and, you know, it's going to allow people that are kind of like thought leaders and experts in the field to kind of speak on the different ways you're able to, you know, capitalize or make money in real estate. So, like, for example, real estate, you're going to have speakers that are well versed in the short-term rental space, the mobile home space, you know, smart home automations, doing wealth with automation, or not automation, wholesaling. So just different aspects in real estate, and also stocks. I know Josh I think his name's Josh Abbott here. He's going to be speaking on stocks at the summit as well. So yeah, it's going to be a great conference. I hope everything with this coronavirus kind of cancels or gets done by that time, because I don't want to do it virtually. I would rather it be in person, because I think that's going to be more effective to the people that want to be in the presence of greatness. So yeah, it's going to be a great conference. It's going to be in August in Houston, Texas, August 7th, and all day event.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on and taking time out your day to hop on. And we will check in with you. And the last speaker for today is my sister. Like, the reason why we're having this summit right now, this Madison's such a light, y'all. Like, there's people that kind of come in your life like at times that you really can't plan for, and you don't know why it makes sense. But she's one of the top spiritual journalists. She transitioned from like being an entertainment journalist. She's been highlighted in Forbes. Like, this is like my spirit sister, and I'm like really excited to have her on.
Hi.
Hi.
This is first and foremost, this has been an amazing conference. I think I did so well on mute, because half the time I was over here in my head like, yes, you had me good. It's good that you had me on mute. But thank you for having me. Before I start, you and Alexis, all of this is such divine synchronicity, to the point where the Budgetista Tiffany, she's actually a really good friend of mine. She's from Newark. I'm from Newark. We came up in the business together back when I was at university. I used to work at this coffee shop, and she would always come in, and we just got really, really close. So it's just very interesting to see how the universe is just making everything. I'm going to introduce you guys to Tiffany. But
love connections.
But yeah, I love Tiffany. She's amazing. So just to kind of backtrack on what you and Alexis was saying earlier, she's fabulous, and she knows her stuff, and vulnerability is what sells. But thank you for having me, but I'm gonna make sure I connect y'all.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm down for it. Always happy to connect.
Yeah. Okay. So, hi, I'm Madison Jaye. I always like to give brief introductions to my background and stuff, because I believe that's extremely important once we start to speak on the alchemy of life, because I've kind of walked through the hell on earth. So I'm an international spiritual journalist. I also do creative marketing. I'm a creative marketing strategist as well, where I specialize and worked with brands such as Hot 97, WBLS. I've worked with probably everyone in the business you can think of, from Beyonce to Oprah. My podcast is currently on iHeartRadio and Pandora. So yeah, and then I have an international life guide blog, and I have 64 bloggers worldwide, where we kind of built this global community. Last year I did my first TED Talk, which was amazing by the grace of God. And it was on building resilience through spirituality. So the reason why I bring up my background and the people that I've worked with is because I have an extremely abnormal story to, I guess, what people will call success, because it's been rooted in faith. When I started out in the business, I started out doing PR, and I started out, I was an entertainment journalist, but in the New York market, everyone knows, homie, you're not going to wear just one hat. You might as well buckle up, because you're going to have 50, but you got to figure out a way to make it work. So I started doing PR. One of my first clients was Ice-T. I did the PR, and I got into event production. I did his PR for one of his birthday parties, and then, me and his team, we just started creating a lot of different things. Then, I started doing more interviews on my own. And when I started to do more interviews on my own, I started working with WBLS and Hot 97. First time Steve Harvey went viral. That was my strategy. I've sat down in meetings with the executives there, and literally we've implemented my creative structure into how they run their digital processes to this day. So I was one of the people who helped assist them with that. So while I was building my own brand as an entertainment journalist, this was before I got into the spirituality of it. While I was building my brand as an entertainment journalist, I started to notice that that all of the people that I would be introduced to, it was always a spiritual essence, from me and Beyonce connecting because she saw my rose quartz, or DJ Khaled telling me, you know, his secret to success is his power of his wording and his manifestation with it. So I started to realize that like all of these really extremely successful people, even when I had dinner at Clive Davis's house last year, it was candles. So all of these essence I started to notice in the business, that, you know, all of these people, while I'm doing their digital structures and sending them viral, I started to pick up on the fact that, wait a second, all of these people are extremely successful, and it's not necessarily a religion background, because everyone had diverse religions, but everybody was rooted in spirituality. And the thing that started to fascinate me was the fact that like no one was talking about this. It was like the forbidden secrets of the industry. But, you know, I started wearing my crystals more publicly. And I remember like I would talk to people at like Fortune 500 companies that I was, you know, were my clients. And they'll be like, you're wearing your crystals publicly? I just keep them in my purse. So I started to get more and more intrigued. So I started to curate and pioneer this lane of spiritual journalism simply off of my infatuation. And so what I've realized is my faith, just to kind of like bring it home to how I grew up. My faith has always been the foundation. So I literally went from, you know, as a kid, I used to eat at soup kitchens. I used to sleep in cars with my parents. Well, excuse me, my mom and my siblings. We used to eat at soup kitchens together. And we've been everything. I grew up homeless sometimes. We would sleep at my mom's friend's house. I was the kid who used to go to school, maybe not with the cleanest clothes, who would have to walk miles to school. And I was the kid who used to live off of, you know, the school lunches for the meals and the consumption of the day. Originally, why I became vegetarian when I was in 8th grade, because I'm the oldest of 5 on my mom's side. The reason why I became vegetarian was because my mom couldn't afford to feed my siblings. And so I got a job at 13, and my first job was at 13 as a tutor. And now looking back on it now, you know, I'm always teaching. So it's very interesting, hopeful. Everything kind of connects. And so I'm looking back on it, you know, that's originally why I became vegetarian. But then, you know, I started to study it and I became really intrigued with it. So I've been everything from, you know, homeless, eating at shelters and soup kitchens, to even down to like when my aunt transitioned, and someone in here earlier was talking about how they lost their mom, and God bless you. I know that pain, because my aunt was basically my mom, and she transitioned in 2016. And I can honestly say that was when my spiritual gifts started to grow at a rapid speed. That was when I had my suicide attempt as well. And I say all of this to say is because my process has dealt with a lot of healing and a lot of spiritual evolution. Where I am, you know, traveling all over the world, teaching at Columbia University by the grace of God, being featured on 19 different magazine covers. These are things that are abnormal for the conditions that I grew up in. Every odd in the world was against me. And through my resilience and building my faith, I was able to start to manifest different things in my life that seemed impossible. The first time I went overseas, one of my friends, we were building together, and they offered me back in 2016. This was right before my aunt transitioned. And they offered me to come speak at London University. And that trip, I landed my first 3 gigs because I had a layover in the Ukraine for about 19 hours. So I ended up booking a school there. And then I booked a gig in Paris on the way back. But when I went over there, I only had like $172 in my pocket, because I like manifested the money doing different things and hustling on social media. And I manifested this money to be able to afford a ticket to go. So I'm like, boom. So after I paid for my ticket, I had a pending. One client was pending, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go. Fuck it, right? So I went, and while I was in the Ukraine teaching, the money came through. But when I decided to go, I didn't know that money was going to go through. I didn't even know, because, you know, sometimes clients, it's like a hit or a miss. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, especially when it's a new client. We all know that.
Right.
So I relied on faith my entire career, even down to, you know, me leveling up and manifesting certain things, getting aligned with my chakras, learning the power of my words and where I place my energy and things like that. These are all things that I've learned along the way that honestly got me out of poverty. I tell people all the time, I didn't choose entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship chose me. So I left an emotionally abusive relationship, I want to say 5 years ago. And when I left that relationship, we did everything. We lived together. We had, you know, bank accounts together, and I was still in college. I don't even remember that girl. Like, that was a completely different me. This was, you know, 5 years ago. And that was my high school sweetheart. But I was working at that time. I was going to school full time. I was working full time. I was basically a freaking stay-at-home wife. And I was working my career full time, and I was learning the balancing of things. And it's kind of like what someone said earlier, like when you don't have when someone has surpassed their chapter, you really just have to learn when to let them go. Because as soon as I did, I started to, my career started to take off. And I remember at that time when I had my full-time job, I was working in a car business. And this is one thing that Alexis and I related on a lot. I worked in the BDC. And so I had this full-time job that was completely demanding. Anyone who works in a car world, especially when they know you're good at communications, they're going to have you on the floor so quick. So I was working with the top car dealerships, Alexis and Honda. And first it started out in New Jersey, and then I transferred over to New York. And that's when I snagged my first campaign, where I was also doing social media marketing for a One Direction campaign with Honda. But it started off in a BDC. And a BDC is the business development, where we were in charge of like communications and creating online sales. I hated the job, but I was making figures. And when I was making these figures, it was the most money I've ever made. I was able to afford my first amount of equipment because I basically didn't have parents. My aunt, she lived in Florida. I was here fending for myself. I mean, moved in with my ex at 17 years old, which is crazy looking back on it. And his family took me in as one of their own, and I was able to finish school because of that. And everything happens for a reason, because that, living with his family, I picked up my first spiritual book, which is The Powers Within You by Louise Hay. And that started my spiritual transition. Everything that I've been through in life, even when I was in the car business, I remember I had to go to the doctors one time, and I thought that I had breast cancer, and I've never talked about this publicly. And I had to face it on my own. No one wanted to go with me at the time. I was completely terrified going to a mammogram at like 20 years old. I was so stressed out, working in school, working this job that I didn't like. They were so demanding of me. They would have me on the floor because I knew how to close a deal. And I remember they ended up in a car business. They don't like to, the car business that I was in, they didn't like to let people go. So when they did finally let me go, because I wasn't going to choose between my career and I knew it wasn't my calling, it was when I thought something was wrong with my body. And that experience, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. So that experience, because that business was so demanding, I started to look at death differently. And I became more infatuated with transition and what happens when you do transition. What is a soul? So that experience, it led me not only to get the equipment from my job, from my company, which is Madison, Jaye LLC, but that transition, that era of my life that was so hard, I look at it now, and it was a development of self-love, because as soon as I left that relationship, I got into the healing my sacral chakra, which is for divine creation. And then I actually went viral. We reached 1.5 million people on my podcast episode about celibacy and, helping women heal so that they're able to take that creation energy and turn it into a form of work. And now, even charity work is so important to me because I was the kid who didn't know where their meal was coming from. So I became engulfed in really helping kids and helping communities around the world establish different ways for people to have food or different revenue streams. Like we created 12 on my website alone. And I say all of this to tie it into the pandemic. It's always been about faith. Anytime things don't make sense, or anytime you're in an agonizing situation, there's a big blessing coming. And that's one thing that I've learned. Anytime that I've had to, I've had like, I remember there will literally be times where I would have to, like, I didn't have money for certain things, and I would sit and I would talk with God, and I would be like, look, God, my last job I was a stylist for like Chanel and Gucci. That was my last like job back in 2015. And I remember they ended up, it was like a seasonal thing, but I stayed there maybe 6 months. It was a seasonal thing, and it was such a drenching industry to be in, the fashion industry. And I remember after they let me go, I started to, I talked to God, and I remember the next day I didn't have that money. I literally had this white envelope sitting in my drawer, and it literally had money in it. And I remember telling my best friend, and it was the exact amount that I was missing. So I say all of this to say, I am founded, my entire career, my entire existence, any hardship that I've ever overcome, it has been rooted in faith. And faith is what we need right now. Honestly, this is God restoring faith in humanity. I got my first feature on Forbes simply because of this virus, to be honest. So it's really about the alchemy of life, like Beyonce's album, right? Beyonce's album is called Lemonade. What is lemonade? It's when they always say, when life gives you lemons, take the sugar, squeeze it, and make it lemonade. People think that by not, I think that as humans, we neglect our shadow selves, actually. Everyone is chasing the light. Light is easy to love, you know? And last year, light is easy to love, but show me your shadow side. Show me that side of you that you're not so happy with. Show me that side so I can nurture it, so that I can love that too, and love that within myself first before I can love it within anyone else. That dark side is where you need to heal that inner child, because there's some inner traumas that you haven't faced because we want to just face the light. Life isn't just about the light. Life is about the alchemy of facing what isn't necessarily the easiest thing, or the nicest part of yourself that you don't want to mirror. So what I think God is doing, the higher source, I'm Christian, so I resonate to the higher source is God, but I also study and respect all religions. I want to make sure I say that. But that's just my religion of, that's my language of love. That's my, yeah. So when you're looking at all of these shadow things that's going on, all of these negative things, they're all rooted in a blessing. Because if I would have never had that really bad relationship that was really unhealthy for me at that time, I would have never got into the sacral chakra healing to attract divine love, which I have experienced now. So I wouldn't have healed my body. And that was the second chakra that I got into, because the first one was obviously the one that's very bold here, the third eye. And with the third eye, I remember I will always get migraines. And as a kid, I also had epilepsy. And so I remember the doctors put me on Cobatrol. And when they put me on Cobatrol, I remember they told me I would never be able to drive. That's why I don't have my license now. I would never be able to drive. And, you know, I will always have these seizures in my sleep. So I personally can't afford to stress out, because the doctor said I could have a seizure. I haven't had one in 2 years by the grace of God. But that point in my life, I became absolutely obsessed with studying the brain. It was the first organ that I became obsessed with healing. Now, you know, I know, and I always tell people I'm not a doctor, but I've helped 15 women worldwide heal their bodies for fertility. And it started from that trauma, that negative energy that someone would see as a shadow part of themselves, where I took it and I flipped it, and I learned I would not have been obsessed with the third eye, or obsessed with the sacral chakra, or obsessed with these healing, these organs, or anything like that, if I would have not went through certain trials and tribulations. Community work would not mean as much to me if I didn't know what it feels like to go to school with dirty clothes, to go to school hungry. It would not happen. It would not be as important. So owning our narratives and owning that negative side of ourselves, I don't even like to call it negative. It's either a blessing or a lesson. If I'm not winning right now, it means I'm learning, and learning is winning. So which is it? You choose. But everything is how you put your mindset, and where you put your passion is where energy is going to flow. So if you look back, I have every reason in the world. Growing up, I used to be, I was, I talked about this on the Mixed Girl Meetups, but I was, abused by my parents. I wasn't allowed to wear my hair down. There was a lot of times in my childhood where diapers cases were called because, I would have cigarette butts on me, or I would have belt whips in my face, and I was going to school like this. And I've always chosen joy. And I've always looked at the perspective of, wow, this was God preparing me to keep me humble and to keep me aligned in whatever he has coming for me. Because if I went through that already, imagine the blessings that are coming. And even though we can't see it, this virus, we can't see it either, right? But if this virus is invisible and it's causing all of this mayhem, imagine what a mustard seed of faith and positive energy can do. We can't change how people treat us. We can't change if we love someone, or we give our all to a job or a career or an idea. We can't control how they treat us in return. We can only control our reaction. And when you choose love, when you choose positive vibrations, even in the midst of dark storms, I know for a fact that it's rooted in blessings and rooted in faith. Now is a really good time to be creative. And now is also a really good time to be still. Be creatively still. Take some days for yourself. But then this is a good time for you to express, to create, just to get it out. Because one thing about vulnerability heals you. It's medicine. it opens you up, and then it also helps you resonate to other audiences. Because when people hear about my pain and I tell them like, look, now celibacy, right, is something, and I talk about it very openly on my podcast with the sacral chakra and healing it, and then taking that divine, because the sacral chakra is located on our genital areas. Our genital areas is for divine creation. Women and men, we are portals. Whether you want to call it that or not, you are. You take something, a soul from outside this world, and we carry it. We talk about generational wealth. The first home for our next generation's wealth is our bodies. As women, this is the first home. This is a nest. So we want to make sure we're consistently building this nest with the energy that we're around, the people that we're around. And when you take, like, for instance, for celibacy, for me, when you take that energy, that divine creation energy, you cleanse it out, and then you take it and you channel it into the rest of your 5D chakras, creation then begins to flow through your being. So you're able to manifest success at a rapid speed. And honestly, that has helped me get out of poverty. It's helped me so much. Everything is rooted in some type of, whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality, whatever you want to call it. Everything is rooted in spirituality. Any foundation that is not based on a spiritual essence will crumble in a pure spiritual essence, because the intention matters too. So as long as you are consistently diving into faith, and you are diving into purity, and you are diving into your purpose, because we all have one, because that's why we like certain things. That's why we all love different things. We're all interconnected for a reason. We're all interconnected for a reason. There is a reason why, spring is this real start of the new year. That's why Aries is the lead zodiac sign. That's when the zodiac calendar starts. And that's also when all of this crazy shit started too. So if you think about it, spring is when the new decade really started. The reason why we celebrate the new year in Capricorn season, because think about it, and I said this at the other summit that I spoke at, but if you think about it, in January, everything's still dead, especially on the East Coast. The trees are dead, the grass is dead, the flowers are dead. Capricorn is just the most powerful manifestation season. So with that, that's why we celebrate it then. But when does everything bloom? Everything blooms in spring. That's the real new year. All of this pandemic stuff happened around March 19th. You could look it up. I'm not making this up. It all happened around March 19th. March 19th is when spring started. That was the real new decade. So God wanted all of us to sit in stillness, to sit down and face ourselves. He said, y'all are not about to bring this planet into this new decade under this bullshit. That's what he said. So we're sitting in this stillness, and it's a good time to connect to your ancestors, connect to your angels, all of that. Because one thing I learned is there's no such thing as death. It's only transition. And once you start to really connect more with your spirit, you're able to see that, and you're able to connect with your loved ones, even when they transition on the other side. And that's a very real conversation that we should be having, especially right now in this pandemic. It's how the art of transition. And I have a podcast episode on iHeartRadio about it. And you guys could check that out on the Madison Jaye Show. But even with transition, learning how to accept it, I have so many tribe members who have been infected by the virus, and I lost a brother last week to it, which completely, it was completely heart-wrenching, because he was such a great guy. And I knew immediately I need to burn a white candle to welcome him as an ancestor friend to assist me on the other side, because, this was my brother. He was a phenomenal person. And I know if he's transitioned, I know that there's going to be some type of assistance on the other side with me, because our ancestors and our angels work directly with God. And even with that, I would not even know this if my aunt wouldn't have transitioned. So I say all of this to say, and that's when I wanted, I swallowed a bottle of pills after she transitioned. So I know the heart-wrenching pain of losing your mom. And when I woke up and I looked at myself, and I knew immediately that I was still supposed to be here. And my gifts started to just level up. So, and we all have these spiritual gifts. It's not, oh, Madison's this spiritual being from another planet. I might be from another planet, but we'll get into that later. But we all have these spiritual gifts, and it's up for us to tap in. We all have at least one. Either we're empaths, and once we start to tap into those gifts, we start to heal ourselves, we start to heal our community, and we start to raise the vibrations of humanity. So owning that me owning my shadow side and me owning and healing those negative things that have happened in my life, they all turned out in alchemy, and it turned out for the better. And honestly, that's exactly what's going to happen with this pandemic. And we're going to see it, and y'all going to be like, that damn Madison, because Nayoka said it this morning. That damn Madison, anytime it doesn't make sense, there's blessings coming. And right now, we're just getting to know who we are in this new transition of 2020. And, you know, we will, and I have, and I know some people have too, we have welcomed ancestral angels through this process, but know that there's no such thing as death. It's not a loss. Only thing is, what's really happening once you tap in is you're just going to miss that frequency of alignment of physical touch. Like anytime something major happens to me, my first initial reaction is to call my aunt. So it's always bittersweet for me. So I literally, without hesitation, I grab my phone and try to call her. And obviously I can't. So that's the one thing that I'm still working on. But other than that, she's here. She's here every single day. And as people transition in your life, you'll understand that life gets more complicated, but you get stronger and you get more aligned, and you can become better equipped to deal with, I don't even want to call it negative, so I'm going to call it shadow energies that come to you, and you'll know how to deal with them. Like, this don't make sense. Don't know why this craziness is going on. There's a blessing coming. That's all I got.
Even with just like, you know, thinking about to the story of me meeting you, like I haven't really shared, you know, that other than with your summit that we had, but you know, I got into a car accident, and there's a lot of people who know that part, but you know, I had been working on building up like my company and everything, and was supposed to be a web designer, web developer. Like that was the agency that I was focusing on building and everything. And you know, they say God, like, you know, people playing God laughs and stuff. And I got into a car accident probably like 3 months before I was planning on quitting my job, and like basically couldn't use my hand. And I'm like, how does that work? Drained my whole, like, you know, almost my whole savings and stuff, like over the next year, just trying to like, you know, fight my body and try to like figure out what I was supposed to do. And finally I just like sat back and I was like, all right, I hear you. I'm not supposed to do this. Like, I'm not supposed to do it this way anymore. And like I deleted my other Twitter and started like getting on that account. But right around the time that I finally kind of surrendered to like what was going on, my little cousin books this flight to go to Thailand out of nowhere by herself. And I'm like looking at my bank account, looking like, I'm just like, I cannot, like, I used to be the one that saved everybody. Like I am big sister. The one, like my phone number has not changed since 4th grade. Like, so everybody calls me for everything because they know I'm going to be there. And like, it was like a time that I'm sitting still, like I can't be there for myself. And I'm finding out who actually can be there for me, even if I don't like, you know, speak that out. And that's like a whole nother part of that shadow side, is like, you don't learn yourself until you're still enough, to, you know, to know where your limitations are. So I had been, you know, doing so much for other people, trying to, you know, almost make it so that if something ever happened to me, like I'd be good. Like, but I didn't know that was a fear in me. And a lot of times we don't look at those things. But, you know, in that you talked about hopping on the planes and traveling and stuff. And
anytime that like I've hopped on a plane, like even when I came, remember I told you when I was at the conference, I was dealing with so many complications. I didn't book my return flight back from your event until I was in Sacramento.
Right.
And because I was just going, because when spirit tells me to move, I move. And everyone, you know, can relate to this, that I know that's, you know, very successful, is sometimes it may not be visible, but you can feel it. And if you can, just a quick, gotta tie it into spirituality, you feel it in your solar plex chakra. Your solar plex chakra is located in your stomach, right? We went over, there's 7 main chakras in the body. The first speaker, she spoke about it a little bit earlier, the root chakra, the third eye, and the heart chakra, but there's 7 in the alignment that aligns you mind, body, spirit, right? The sacral chakra is for creation. The third eye is for wisdom. The crown chakra is for your happiness and your harmony. Your heart chakra, love. So your root chakra is for your balance, and your solar plex chakra, which is located in your stomach, that is for your trusting your intuition, Or you know how like people say, oh, I had a gut feeling, or I should have trusted that, oh, my gut was right. Subconsciously, do people even know why they're saying that? And they are saying that because the human body actually doesn't have one brain. We have 3 brains. The first brain is located in our stomach. So what controls our body is not our brain and our skull. What controls our body is the bacteria in our stomach. The solar plex chakra is yellow. The solar plex chakra, your intuition, your spiritual higher self, those are all synonyms of each other. So what happens is the bacteria in your stomach, what you are eating, what you are consuming, it then sends a frequency up to your brain, and then it transmits it out to the rest of your body. So what I say this to say is a lot of successful people, and yellow foods help heal. I'm not a doctor, but I know that's a fact. Kombucha and ginger are great for that. But when you're healing, that's how you get that pinch in your stomach when you feel like something's off, or sometimes we call it woman's intuition. But it's that pinch feeling in your stomach. It's your solar plex chakra. And I say this to say, like, a lot of successful people, they take that leap, that pinch, and they don't know why they're doing it, but they're so aligned that their subconscious just beats in without them knowing it.
I was sitting there like, I didn't have a passport yet. I didn't have a passport, so I had to learn how to like expedite a passport. I couldn't drive because my shoulder, like I had to put my car on non-ops and stuff like that. So I had to figure out how I'm going to get on a train, get all the way to San Francisco twice within the next like couple of weeks and stuff, and like expedite passports and all of this. But I'm literally sitting on a train getting ready to like go and get on the flight, and I ended up missing it because the passport was like it came in like an hour and a half late, and I'm like waiting, and I'm like, she cannot go out there by herself. And I get to the airport, and they're like, you're gonna have to wait till the next day. And I was like, all right. So I get to my aunt's house in the Bay Area, and I've messaged my family. I was like, oh, by the way, like I'm going to Thailand tomorrow and stuff. And my mom like calls and like, you're doing what now? Like, you've been in bed for 3 months. And I'm like, everything in my spirit says I'm supposed to go, and she's not supposed to go alone. Like that's all I know. That's all I got and stuff. And like the tickets bought, like my passport is done. Like I'm gone. And she's just like, I only have one of you. And I'm like, I get that. This time I'm going to be okay. And but like getting on the plane, I'm again like thinking like, this is about the dumbest thing I've ever done. I'm a really smart person to do a dumb thing.
But you know what? It doesn't feel like it's dumb. It's something that it's like an inner knowing, kind of like we already know what our destinies are going to be. We're kind of, and we know, but we don't know. It's like we have a feeling, like a narrative. Like I started out as an entertainment journalist. I always knew that I was supposed to be interviewing and curating. And, with social media, I kind of, when Columbia had me teach the lecture, it was the first time anyone had taught a social media lecture, and everyone thought I was crazy. Everyone called me crazy when I planned my first international tour and said, I'm going to sell with just social media. Everyone, but our souls know when something is ordained for them to do. And so girl, we crazy, but it's a good crazy.
And well, like, I guess that's the thing too. That's the power of social media, because right then I had just I hit like 3,000 followers like that morning on Twitter and stuff. And I had like clients that, I had a tweet that went viral, and like I had just released my website. Like I published my website getting on the plane. But like by day 2 of the trip, I tweeted out that picture about me texting my mom where she's just like asking like, hey, like, my parents were like, hey, like, how's the trip going so far? And I was like, oh, it's cool, just chilling with the homies. And there was the picture with the tiger. And, you ended up chiming in, and we were able to connect and stuff and to see like how much has come out of that. And that was like, that was almost a year ago now.
I knew we were, my soul knew we were sisters.
I'm like, these people weren't here. This community wasn't here. Like, but I wouldn't have even been able to build that if I wouldn't have taken that flight, I started posting and being more vulnerable and sharing where I was at and what I was doing and things like that. And so it just ties back into me always saying, when you operate in your gifts, when you operate in your truth, wherever that truth is, whatever it looks like, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it looks a little dumb, because like I said, like I did all the business degrees, like I did, like I went to school, I got the jobs and all that stuff. But, ultimately, like at the end of the day, like it's about you stepping into what is supposed to be for you. And for me, like that was something that you couldn't tell me I wasn't going on that trip to make sure that she was good. And I was supposed to be there, but same thing, like that's how I ended up meeting you and this whole time. So I'm so thankful and super excited to have you on. Like, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
I know we ran a little bit over on time on things. Can you drop where people can connect with you?
Madison is it's Madison Jaye with the E on all social. Madison Jaye, JAYE_ MadisonJaye.com. You could check out all of the divisions to my website and my services, both spiritual and media. And then it's the Madison Jaye Show on iHeartRadio. So, and we're picking back up next month for the second half of the season. So Nyla 3019 returns. That's another story for another day.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much to all the different speakers that came in here, that were vulnerable, that shared themselves, that shared their craft, their way they think, like the way that you guys are moving through this, like what this looks like from so many different places. Like, I think it's a powerful thing to operate in your gifts and, like, you know, show up even when it's hard. Because I know a lot of us have, you know, lost people. I have a friend who lost both of his parents last week that I grew up with, and it's disheartening to see like what's going on. But you know, me and Madison have talked about this. There's such a shift coming because there's so much opportunity that comes out of discourse. If you keep your eyes open, if you're looking into if you're looking at just any time in history where there's been, like, you know, terrible things that have happened, people build communities with people with shared goals, shared ideals, shared values, and powerful things start happening and forming. So this is, you know, this is a testament to it, just with all of you guys that have joined on. So thank you so much for being a part of it.